What issues do you feel are being overlooked in Parliament?
Well, the oil and gas, for one thing. I mean, people can't afford the electric cars. You know, so many can't afford them. So what are they going to do if they can't afford the gas for their cars? So I think that's a real shame, and I think they're going in the wrong direction. They're going way too fast, and they need to slow down and think about their citizens.
I'm not in Parliament. I don't know everything they talk about, but I'm impressed at anybody who serves, and I trust that they're doing their job.
Personally, as an Albertan, I think the transfer payment, equalization payments, is a total farce, given that, you know, we're the powerhouse province in this country. I just think that it can be a lot more equitable to Alberta for sure.
I would say, at large, the COVID response, I feel, is maybe not getting the attention that it needs, especially people who are unvaccinated are still required to stay in Canada. They're not allowed to leave in any way, shape, or form. So that's a little bit frustrating for me, and I'd like to see that change for sure.
I'm a climate change guy. I've been harping on that issue forever, and that's the one that's getting overlooked. I think that's more important than pretty much anything else right now.
Some more incentives for healthcare workers, current ones and future ones as well, to get an influx of people working. We need staff. So not only did the COVID drive people out of healthcare, we're also reaching a demographic where a lot of the baby boomers are leaving the industry. We've also switched over to a computerized system, so that also pushed a little bit of the older generation out. So now we don't have like those mature nurses to pass on the knowledge to the younger the younger crew coming in.
Yeah, if you're trying to rent, you just can barely live to afford. You get $1,500 to $2,000 for a 1 to 2 bedroom house is quite insane to be renting, especially if you're trying to start a family.
Federally and provincially, we have a mental health crisis going on. You can just look around our community and you can see the folks that have fallen through the cracks, who are suffering. So we need, you hear it time and time again, we need proper housing and we need proper care. That needs to be addressed right now. It's been a crisis for too long.
I'm concerned about our health, yes. Canadians first. And look after your seniors and your most compromised people. You judge a country by the least fortunate, how they treat the least fortunate, do you not?
Well, it's really delicate, right? Because obviously there's a huge opioid crisis in Canada and in North America as a whole, the world as a whole, in fact. And I feel like that's always been overlooked, but especially now that there's social distancing in place and such strict requirements for the general public to follow, I feel like mental health issues aren't being looked at enough. I feel like people without homes aren't being thought after enough. I mean, that's already a tough enough situation as it is, but let alone sanctions that are affecting the middle class and upper class. I mean, the people at the bottom are really just getting ignored right now.
Overlook, I feel like it's probably the COVID issues right now. And then, I mean, the government's, from my personal perspective, I think that the government wants to try to make the people happy right now, so they remove the mask issues. So I think it doesn't help actually for the COVID issue. So we still have like the COVID numbers increasing after like everyone removed the mask. So I think it is still very obligations for like everyone to wear the mask right now.
Well, everything is going up in prices, and you got the old age, ODSP, plus welfare. How are they going to cope with that unless they raise the money, cost of living? Because everything's going up from food to rent to gas, you name it. It's going up, but yet our checks aren't. And that, I feel, they're really overlooking after a little bit better than 2 years of the COVID.
Also, as always, I think the Liberal government has made promises to the Indigenous population and communities that feel like they've been brushing aside continuously as well.
Yeah, and they've also mentioned like election reform in the past, and it's just, there hasn't been anything. So I think that's like pretty important as well.
I would say there is a disconnect between what people really need and then what actions governments are taking, right, regarding housing specifically. Right, some of the actions are a step forward, but I don't think they fully address the issue as they should.
Clean water. Yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest one. Everyone having a voice and like being heard, everyone's issue should be taken. You know, everyone's issue is valid. So I think COVID kind of came and it showed us that, you know, everyone kind of just decided to, speak up and with all the protests. So I think that like now we should maybe come together and have a voice. And yeah, I would say that maybe being heard is probably a big one. Clean water.
Well, I think homelessness is one. Inflation, I don't know anybody who's not talking about that, and it's impacting their own life, their business, whatever. So I'd say, how do we control inflation? I don't think we've seen this rate of inflation in decades, probably. So I think it's going to be a challenge.
The environment, that was supposed to be such a big thing for Mr. Trudeau to take care of climate change and all that. That's basically fallen to the back burner, not being talked about at all. What else? I mean, the economy isn't doing that great, and it's not just because of COVID. So I don't know what Mr. Trudeau is if the pandemic wouldn't have happened, would he have done anything to make this economy a better one and make this, country a stronger country? I would hope so, but he hasn't done anything since then.